It is Sunday, May 18th, and it's getting pretty late with Jake Landau. We've got another returning guest for you folks today. His name is Lukas Oakley. He is one of the councillors for Ward 2 in the city of the County of Brant, which is, yes, a city, but they still call it officially the County of Brant because we like when people are very funny, and I think that's a little funny, so good to the County of Brant. And also, he is attempting to join the Federation of Canadian Municipalities with the support of his fellow city councillors in the County of Brant. So, Lukas, welcome back to the program. Great to have you again.
Thanks for having me back. Glad to be back.
No, yeah, I mean, it's always a pleasure having you. So, I mean, I guess the first thing is that's the new thing since we had you last time. You're making a play for the big Federation of Canadian Municipalities. Could you explain a little about that?
Yeah, for sure. So I was so over the past couple of months, I've been working with a group called the Ontario Coalition for the Rights of Homeless People, fighting against what is now, I believe it's Bill 6. Previously, I believe it was Bill 241, something along those lines, the Safer Municipalities Act, which is essentially criminalizing homelessness, so on and so forth, from the Ford government. And through that, I've met actually a couple of the current board members, Rory Nissan and Allison Story, who are both on the FCM board. And through that, I kind of got to chat with them about their role on FCM and sort of the benefits of that. And that kind of got me tuned in to thinking about it. And then with this past federal election, I was encouraged to run because, we have Mark Carney's government now, not quite a majority, still in a minority government there. And, one of the things that concerned me most, sort of on the same through lines as fighting for the rights of homeless people and a housing first solution, Carney has talked an awful lot about separating out the capital operational budgets as we're talking about federal budgets, which I think is not a bad idea, but also talking about, I believe, going from 9% of an operational budget down to 2%, which is quartering the amount of money that the federal government spends on operations, which there's been a lot said about finding efficiencies, yada yada. You don't find efficiencies enough to quarter your budget. So what that means in practice, is it's going to be
that's just code for austerity. Like,
exactly,
you barely find efficiencies to peel off 10% of your budget some years.
Exactly, and you know what, finding efficiencies is great, but slashing services in a time where, yes, money's tight because we're in an interesting economic situation due to the U.S. and other global events. But this is the time when our most vulnerable citizens need us the most.
And in a recession, you actually need economic stimulus. Like, if you do austerity in a recession, you're fucked. Like,
yeah, and both of us are in the same generation here. Prosperity for our generation has really been hampered from a similar sort of mandate with the Chrétien government, slashing all sorts of things, including the public builder. The federal government actually being in the business of building homes. They downloaded it to the provinces in Ontario. They then downloaded to municipalities, and we haven't had any meaningful amount of housing built, and thus we have that crisis, let alone the other social services that were cut that reduce social mobility. So I wanted to get involved with FCM to sort of be a voice there to sort of push back against sort of these austerity measures, recognizing, yes, of course, we need to keep our powder dry, whatever expressions you want to use to show fiscal responsibility, but at the same time, we still need to be supporting those services that support our most vulnerable residents and invest in people.
I feel like keep our powder dry is just the new phrase, not even just in economics for austerity, but it's just the phrase for we shouldn't do something now. We should wait until later, when I will still say we shouldn't do something now.
Yeah, I also view that expression with sort of that same
like
skepticism.
The enemy's going to march into our bunker and shoot us before we've even got our guns, but at least our powder will be dry.
Yeah, I'm a much bigger fan of the expression. the best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago. The second best time is now.
Yep.
Not many people are talking about planting a tree in 25 years because maybe we'll have time to plant it then. So I'd rather invest now.
That's how you got interested in the trying to join the board for the Federation of Canadian Municipalities. And I assume there's an election process that happens.
Yes. So I actually have the page pulled up right now, but yeah, so there's I believe it's 74 seats on the board, 16 of which are for Ontario elected officials, 9 of which are for election, 6 of which are appointed municipal candidates, and 1 is an appointed affiliate candidate. I believe typically the affiliate candidate would be a representative from AMO. Yeah. So I'm amongst the folks competing for the 9 elected spots.
And how does one qualify to run in that?
So in order to qualify to run, you have to submit some paperwork just saying that you're agreeing to run all the committees you'd be interested in, because one of the sort of through lines, if you're not successful, is they do consider you for their various committees. So they kind of roll
plenty
in
of consolation prizes to go around.
Exactly. And then your municipality has to pass a resolution agreeing to allow you to be a candidate and agreeing to that the municipality is going to pay for any expenses caused by the participation in and
FCM. I see that your city councillor fellow councillors have done so unanimously.
Yes. No, they did support me unanimously. There we go. Got the word out. Though we had a funny sort of thing on the night of the council meeting where in previous years, other councillors, like for example, my colleague, Councillor Dave Miller, he ran for the Roma board. The councillor who was running brought their own motion forward. Turns out, and I actually was glad that my fellow councillor caught this, because of the sort of stipulation that the municipality is going to pay for expenses, plus our own remuneration bylaw that stipulates that you get an additional salary, which I also wasn't aware of. Not really doing this for the extra $1,800 in salary from the municipality. But because of those 2 factors, I actually can't be part of the motion myself. I have to declare a conflict of interest because I have a pecuniary interest in that.
Right. So you do get a financial benefit.
Yeah.
It's small,
so in
but...
the day of one of my fellow councillors let us know and then jumped in and to move it, which was very nice.
Well, I know that on occasion you do have some disagreements with other councillors in Brant over uncertain, not on every issue, but I know on our previous on your previous appearance we talked about some topics of discussion and debate. So it is nice to see that you did get unanimous support to join the FCM. Or to
it's good
to join. Is there a reason that this one was unanimous?
In the past, I believe my municipality has always unanimously supported anyone running for an additional board. Really, just out of the courtesy of it's to let me or let another councillor have their shot at it.
Yeah, it's like whatever side of local debates you may be on, Brant is Brant.
Exactly. And we're I'm still going there representing Brant's interests, and it's an excellent way to get, a small municipality like ours, we're not typically going to be getting ministerial delegations with the federal government. They got bigger fish to fry. This is an opportunity for us to get Brant issues at that federal level by bringing it to sort of
the fact that there are existing board members who have shown interest in you and prodded you to do this shows that you do have a good shot at it.
Hopefully we'll see. I never count my chickens before they hatch, but got to get on the making literature, all that good stuff.
True, you shouldn't count the chickens before they hatch, but you should count how many eggs you've got.
Yes, true.
You can't hatch more chickens than there are eggs.
Yes.
Yeah. I'm sure there's been a genetic anomaly somewhere along the line, like at Riverdale Farm.
Yes.
So how does the voting process work? Who is eligible to vote at the FCM? I assume there's an AGM that'll occur soon in the not too distant future.
So the AGM is at their annual conference, which is going to be running from May 29th to June 1st. The AGM itself is on June 1st, where they'll ratify the election results. The actual election will be taking place the 2 days previous on the 30th and 31st
So
of
people
May.
have several days to vote. And
Yes.
who's eligible to come and vote at the AGM?
So any elected officials who have registered for the conference and are participating in the conference.
So is that just city councilors and regional councilors, or could it also include school board trustees?
I do not believe it involves school board trustees. I think it's
so
city councils, regional
so
councils.
just like general municipal electeds, like mayors and region chairs and councilors and such.
Yeah.
Okay. Well,
precisely.
That makes sense. So it's an open field, and essentially, more like it's an open voting process. It's not like you have to be nominated by your city council to go and get to vote.
No, you do not.
Okay. So that I mean, that is very soon. We'll be watching closely on June 1st to see how things go. In other news, aside from your run for the FCM board, I know recently you were in Toronto at Queen's Park for the budget, for the provincial budget for Ontario.
Yes, so I was there on Wednesday, the day ahead of the budget, just to meet with my MPP. We had some good conversation about the healthcare system in Brant, which then we did get in the budget the following day, the remaining funds for the planning grant so that the hospital can move forward. And it's also now additionally, we've known for a while, but it's now public that rather than trying to renovate the old Brantford Hospital, we're going to be looking at a greenfield site, which is exciting. I think it's definitely the way to be moving forward, because the current site's very landlocked. It's very expensive to renovate an old building versus building new, and it'll give us lots of opportunities to expand in the future, which is good.
Well, that gets into my next question then, because I was going to ask what funding commitments in the budget are you excited about? But it sounds like the new hospital is something that's, and rightly so, it seems like that is a thing to be excited about, especially, with the current state of public health care.
Oh, very much so. I mean, it's something that we've been sort of really pushing for through our government relations strategy for a long while. We're very excited for this new hospital. We desperately need it. It's again, one of those things, we needed it 10, 20 years ago, but I'm happy it's moving forward now.
Again, second best time is now.
Exactly. And it's funny enough where on Monday, I believe the NDP official opposition brought forward a motion, actually mentioned the Brantford Hospital multiple times by name. So it's good to see that it's getting a lot of attention on both sides of the aisle there, because our community really does need it. Beyond that, I actually haven't had a ton of time to dig into the rest of the budget. I've obviously seen, the PC saying it's the best budget.
Until
NDP
next
and the
year's
Liberals
budget,
saying it's the worst budget.
And then their budget will be even better.
Yes, exactly. So I haven't had time to really dig into it. Though I did see some comments that I will have to verify in that, since the province is sort of pushing down this route of criminalizing homelessness, which I very much do not agree with. It also hasn't seemed to come with a ton of additional funding for housing, though I can't vouch for that. That's just something.
Well, of course, if they could just put them in homes, they wouldn't need to criminalize these human beings.
Well,
the whole point of criminalizing them is so you don't have to pay to do the right thing. You can just, violate living, breathing human beings and lead to their deaths, and no one will complain because, I'm complaining. I'm very much complaining.
Even though I
hate everything.
The data overwhelmingly shows that it's far more effective to use housing for solutions and actually treat the issue, as opposed to
for our no prize question of the day, for pointing out the obvious, is the best solution for homelessness a home?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Congratulations, you have won the no prize.
Yes. So
at a certain point, it gets ridiculous but of course, and we'll get into this soon in our second half with Mark Carney's housing minister choice and other cabinet choices. But we do seem to live in a society where everyone's like, no matter what happens, the rich people hoarding housing can never lose a single penny.
Yeah, it's it seems, and again, I'm assuming we'll get into this, but it does seem a bit pretty straightforward to me that in order to make housing affordable, housing needs to become affordable.
Right.
Um,
Well,
which means either wages have to increase drastically or the price of housing has to come down. And one of those is easier to do than the other.
well, I know Mike Moffat put a thing out where he's like, if the price of housing stays stagnant, then it would take 20 to 40 years for wages to catch up.
Yep.
And while I would love to buy my first home at 65, I would also like to move out maybe a little earlier than then.
Yeah, I think, and I think, yeah, many folks would agree with that sentiment. Both, people in our generation and our parents who are looking to get us out.
Well, I mean, speaking of the parents, it's like I know conservatives will always complain, "Oh, why are the next Gen Z having less kids than generations before them?" And I'm like, maybe because mom and dad are right next door and the walls are thin.
Yeah, that might be a contributing factor.
It turns out that's not conductive to the mood.
Yeah.
It's like there's just so much of the ills in our economy and society right now are just linked to the fact that no one has a place to live.
Yeah, absolutely. And just everything's gotten more expensive. It's harder to get by, right? So,
Yeah, and it's like, well, it's good for our economy to have a strong housing industry. And I mean, it'd be better, though, if we had a strong everything else industry that wasn't being weighed down by housing like a ball and chain.
yep. I was actually talking to, who was I talking to recently? Oh, I think it was at Queen's Park. I was talking to one of the ONDP MPPs. And one of our local employers is actually came to council maybe about a year ago, applying to build what is essentially like a company town, build housing on site for their workers because it's not feasible for them to for their workers to live locally. So they're stepping up to build housing themselves. So it's interesting that housing has gotten so bad that we're now back to the era of company towns, and sort of rediscovering that solution.
Well, I look forward to being paid in scrip instead of dollars. Nothing has ever gone wrong when your business owns where you live as a worker.
Yeah, it's one of those things where I'm not exactly a fan of an employer having that much control over their employees. But at the same time,
Brant could just build housing.
Well, exactly.
Yeah.
At the same time, at least someone's building housing. So
True, but it's not a fun time to want a place
not a
to
good power
live.
dynamic.
Is there anything else going on in Brant that we should be aware of? Anything hip and with it that you want to share with the world?
Well, very exciting on the housing topic. Just on Tuesday, the same council meeting where my fellow councillors allowed me to run for the FCM board, we actually also just passed our policy to allow 4 units as of right in the County of Brant.
Nice.
Which I've been working on. I believe I brought my first motion forward on that back in the beginning of 2023, mid 2023. And just now, we've finally been able to get that through. Close vote, but nevertheless, it's through, and we're allowing 4 units as of right. Secondary structures, we're increasing the height from 4.5 meters to 6.5 meters to make it more feasible to do something where, like, you have a garage and then the housing above, so that because we're not doing anything in regards to parking, not reducing parking at all. But at the very least, 4 units will be allowed as of right.
Well, that is a welcome change.
Yes.
I do know in Toronto there were some problems where technically 4 units were allowed as of right, but you couldn't have 2 4-unit things beside each other on adjacent lots share an interior wall. Is that a similar restriction still in Brant, or?
I think technically yes, as of now. But we're also looking to simplify our zoning. We have a bunch of residential zoning categories that we're looking to sort of condense to allow more townhouses, row houses, stacked towns, and more neighborhoods.
Valid.
in addition to 4 units.
And
as of
that's
right.
also good to hear. I mean,
Yeah.
something I've honestly considered in general is that I know city councilors abound kind of dislike when I bring this up because it's taking away municipal authority and giving it to the province. But I do feel like zoning categories should just be set out by the province because I don't know that, like, there's a big difference between, say, Brant or Vaughan or the general idea in that, like, why should a 4 unit be allowed in Brant but then not in Brantford or vice versa? You get the idea. It's like
Yeah.
there are certain things where, like, I think the city should be allowed to decide which category they zone where, but I think the categories themselves and what should be built in them should just be set provincially so that developers can then use similar designs throughout the province. Because when you talk about raising the limit on the secondary from 4.5 to 6.5 meters, other city municipalities will have different exact heights, and that creates problems for reusing designs, and that does create an increase in prices because you can't just have a catalog that you use.
Yep. And actually that was the topic of conversation at the meeting where we decided on 6.5, but there's some municipalities locally that are doing 6 meters. Some of the Saskatchewan and Manitoba, I believe, have 6.8 meters. Some of the CMHC catalog homes or designs are 6.7 meters. Some are 6.4 meters. So you're exactly right. And I would tend to agree with you as much as I am a municipal councillor and I don't like jurisdiction being taken away. I think it makes sense to have a sort of province-wide, zoning categories just to make things that much simpler. It will reduce costs of housing significantly, I think. And then allow the local municipality to determine what zones
it's like
are where.
Brant decides what's industrial, what's residential.
Yeah, and even the category of residential, whether it's low density, medium density, high density. And I think some the one cautionary tale sort of with the province doing those things is they tend to be overly large urban focused, and sometimes things might not be appropriate in a more rural context. But as long as there's housing categories that can be used for rural, hamlets, so on and so forth, then really, I think that would make a lot of sense. One of the things that I did see people, some of my constituents bring up about the budget and I believe Bill 5 was the province is looking to crack down on municipalities doing their own green development standards. I'm a little reluctant to let go of that.
Valid.
Just because the province isn't really focused on
I wouldn't say that Doug Ford's environmental bona fides are strong.
No, and Bill 5 is a striking example of that.
It's an extreme overreach. It's essentially government by fiat.
Yeah, and by so that's where I'd be reluctant to give up things like being able to develop our own green development standards. But at the same time, I do appreciate that everyone having their own flair of green development standards makes it almost impossible. Creates that same proliferation of standards. So if we had a provincial government that was willing to put the time and effort into building reasonable green development standards, then I would agree. Just let the province do it. The problem is we don't currently have a provincial government that makes that a focus.
Final question before we go into the break. Do you think, because you mentioned some of the CMHC catalog homes are slightly taller on that secondary attachment than what Brant allows, do you think that Brant should pass a bylaw simply saying that anything in the CMHC catalog should be allowed as of right?
That actually is something that I'm considering bringing forward in the future. For now, I'm going to let this one sit just because it was a tight vote and I don't want this to
Don't get too pushy.
Get knocked down because I was over ambitious, but I think that is definitely a way that we should go. I think anything that the federal government's saying, these are designs that are ready to go that you can build is something that we should be allowing in the County of Brant.
Well, we will be keeping an eye out. Folks, don't go anywhere. We will be back with our guest, Councillor Lukas Oakley, after the break. Today's episode of It's Getting Pretty Late with Jake Landau is brought to you by me. You see, folks, while all of my written articles and podcasts are available without a paywall, I need money to make them. Also, I need money to live. So, if you enjoy my content or find it informative, please consider an optional paid subscription at jakelandau.ca/subscribe. Thank you, and enjoy the show. And we are back from the break with our guest, Councillor Lukas Oakley from the County of Brant. Yes, it is a city called the County of Brant, and I find that endlessly amusing, but in a fun way. I like character. Anyways, we are here with your 3 headline topics for the week, folks. Our first headline topic is about our Prime Minister, Mark Carney, and his new cabinet. Now, last week I had fan favorite Norm de Pascale on the NDP candidate in Spadina Harbourfront on the show, and we both discussed how the one cabinet minister we really both wanted back was Nate Erskine-Smith, and we both were very, very disappointed. I'm not happy with this cabinet. Lucas, are you happy with this cabinet?
No, not at all. That was the one minister as well that really stood out to me was losing Nate Erskine-Smith.
Yeah. The other one who pokes out to me is Karina Gould, but he got rid of her slightly before the election, but it's still striking that she's not back. Like it feels like a left-wing purge is afoot, and the only reason that Stephen Guilbeault is still there is because he's from Quebec, and you can't purge the Quebec people yet, or ever.
Well, and it's interesting that, I think the logic behind removing Nate Erskine-Smith is he has a reputation as a maverick speaking his mind. I know I saw the one quote kind of thrown throughout the media where he was talked about being disappointed about being removed from cabinet, as if that's something that should be shocking to anyone.
Well, I mean, also, like,
not a completely normal reaction.
Was Trudeau that added him, and he was more vocally critical of Trudeau. Like, frankly, before Carney even won the leadership, mind you, not the general election, but before he even became leader of the Liberal Party and the Prime Minister, Nate endorsed him. Nate held a massive event for him locally in the beaches in Toronto, like drew in a lot of money, drew in a lot of voters and support for him. So it was really confusing to me because at least with Karina Gould, like that was a rival who criticized him in the debates. And I think it's stupid, but I understood that Carney was being prickly about that. Again, stupid, but like, man, not the first time a male politician has overreacted to his ego being bruised. But with Nate was nothing but loyal. He was great at his job. If you're not going to keep him in housing, that's one thing. But to not keep him in cabinet at all, it's absurd. Like, typically, even from a cynical perspective, that's the kind of loyalty you typically reward.
Yep. Yeah. And I think I'm very saddened by the fact that he's not in the housing portfolio. I think he, obviously he wasn't in that role for a lot of time, so it's not like you saw a lot of the impact, but at least he was.
But that's the thing, he actually did do a lot and moved fairly quickly in the role. Yeah. He inked a lot of deals with a lot of places, provinces and city. So it's like he would, for the short time he was in it, I feel like he's going to do a lot more than Gregor Robertson is. Like Mr. Double development charges. Well, more like he raised them 141% when neighboring Richmond, I believe, only raised them about 90-ish% in the same time period. So it was egregious compared to his neighbors even.
And I don't know how they're going to square the circle of Gregor Robertson saying that, development charges are just a way to get extra profits out of developers. Versus, the Carney government sort of perspective that development charges are causing housing to be more expensive.
I mean,
so I don't know how they're going to square that circle.
I feel like the pretty honest answer is they're going with the rich people who donate money to the party over the poor people.
I think unfortunately that is
like whenever we're ambiguous over, are they going to do the right thing or the wrong thing? Typically, there's not ambiguity when they're going to do the right thing.
Yeah, and it's one of those things too where it's as I was kind of saying before, they took Nate Erskine-Smith out because I think he has a reputation of speaking his mind and not necessarily always sticking to the company line. But then this whole first week of the cabinet, you had Gregor Robertson putting his foot in his
No,
mouth.
yeah, you had a
Gil Bo put his foot in his mouth. Like,
and it's like Nate said he felt disrespected, and I'm like, he's right. He should feel disrespected. This is absurd. Like, that's you don't kick someone out of cabinet for being good at their job and loyal to you. That's the worst political instincts I've ever seen.
Well, and if it was kicking him out for someone who was truly transformative on housing or something, right? It'd be one thing, but
that's even the thing. It isn't even just about housing. It's that you kicked him out of cabinet entirely.
Oh yeah.
And someone was like, "Well, they had to do it to keep gender balance," and I'm like, you know what would have kept gender balance? Also, keep Karina Gould.
Yep. Well, and then they did weird things like, they had. I actually liked sort of the Secretary of State sort of dynamic. I think that makes sense.
Yeah, I'm not opposed to the two-tier system either. I think it makes sense, but I also think it's really funny to explicitly tell MPs your job is less important and I'm paying you less money and you don't get to come to all the meetings of the Cool Kids Club.
It is kind of funny, but then
it's like something like you would do in grade 3.
Yeah, you make labor a Secretary of State, but then artificial intelligence a full ministry. When I don't have a huge issue with it being
Mark Carney art, so he owes him.
Yeah, I don't have a huge issue with AI being a portfolio of some description. It is sort of a major.
If anything, that should be a Secretary of State position under like industry or something. Well,
industry. Or
aren't there 3 different trade ministers? There's one for international trade, one for internal trade, and one for U.S.-Canada trade. And I'm like, well, surely there should be 1 minister and 3 secretaries of state for this position, or parliamentary secretaries, which we already had, but everyone seems to have forgotten about.
Yeah. Yeah, I think there was a lot of the cabinet structure doesn't make any sense from what he's.
I think the cabinet structure makes sense if the goal was to technically be smaller than Trudeau's on one number, while in truth being bigger. Because Trudeau had 36 prior to in his final cabinet, excluding himself, I believe, and this is 38 excluding Carney, I believe. And I know 10 or so of those are secretaries of state. So, it's bigger.
Yeah.
If you're saying, oh, they don't get to come to all of the meetings, and listen, I get it. I get why they do the, spin and the branding. I used to do more political organizing. But I still despise it.
Yeah, I think they, like you had said, with just trade, I think they very easily could have gotten away with, even probably 12, 15 full ministers, and then have the 20, 25 secretaries of state. And I think even though that would have still been a quote unquote larger cabinet, I think that would have been more true to what they are trying to signal, which is a smaller, more effective government.
One of my other big problems, though, is I'm unhappy that labor is now downgraded. Good, I complained enough that they had to create a job that says the word labor. Yay me. This is entirely my doing and no one else's. But you've explicitly downgraded it from a cabinet position to a gets invited sometimes position.
Yeah, which doesn't bode well for Carney's relationship.
And the disability role is gone still.
Yes, that's still gone. I believe the women and gender equity role did come back. I believe.
I think so.
Yeah.
So it's there were some answering on that front, which fine, but the disability one is still gone, and that's unacceptable.
No.
At a certain point, it does actually just feel like it's now explicit that the federal government, whichever party they are, just wants disabled people to die.
Well, and this is where, back to the previous conversation in the first half with, why I ran for FCM, this is a time where the government needs to be signaling that it's going to look out for people who are most vulnerable. And the fact that they've downgraded labor, only just brought back women and gender equality after being called out on it, and still have left out a minister of disability. Like, it's not a good sign for those things, especially as all of that tends to rely on operational funding.
And on an environmental front too, like I know Jonathan Wilkinson left, I believe, as natural resources minister, and
Mhm.
he's been replaced by Tim Hodgson from, I shit you not, folks, Goldman Sachs Canada, who used to be Mark Carney's boss at Goldman Sachs for a bit, and then Mark Carney was his boss at the Bank of Canada. So like they work together at Goldman Sachs, and now they just give each other jobs. And Tim Hodgson is a rookie MP. This is literally he just became an MP in this election, and he's immediately getting elevated to cabinet because he and Mark Carney work together. I'm very, very concerned about the run government like a business rhetoric coming out of things, because like when you focus entirely on profit and loss, there are a lot of vulnerable people in society who lose out when the government describes them as a financial loss, and what happens isn't pretty.
Well, and just on that same sort of topic, I mean, we just saw an article come out just yesterday, day before, about the sort of Canada Post negotiations, saying that it's effectively bankrupt, as if it's meant to be.
Yeah, it's essentially they're like, well, it will never be profitable, so we need to make it worse. And I'm like, okay, that seems like an artificial constraint that Parliament can easily fix, because they're ultimately who the union is negotiating with.
Yep.
Like, the division between the Canada Post Board and the federal government is an arbitrary and false distinction. Like, they exist by the will of the government, and the government decides what form they take.
It's always that sort of conversation that we have about these sort of public services, whether it's Canada Post, public transit, and never one we have about.
And I love how they said we need to get rid of daily delivery for people, but we should keep it for businesses. And I'm like, so you're keeping the game, you're giving the game away. It's like we should make things worse for voters, but better for hoarders.
Yeah. And you know, we don't have the same conversations when it comes to, well, is the road making money? Is the wastewater treatment plant making money? No, it's a public service. It's not meant to make money.
To be controversial here, this is why not only do I support the toll on the 407 and oppose any efforts to remove it, I believe all 400 series highways should be tolled. Like, whenever I take the TTC or the GO train or any public transit, it's not free. Why should people get to drive for free?
And I don't know if you saw, but not that I was considering this in the County of Brant to my voters, but
necessary disclosure.
Necessary disclosure. But it actually is now explicit as of this year's budget for Ontario that that we're not allowed to do toll roads in municipalities. I guess it was technically feasible before. It is no longer not. It is now.
I mean, go ask John Tory what happened when he tried to do it. It was Kathleen Wynne who stopped him because she thought it would keep the 905 voting for her in 2018.
Which worked swimmingly.
Yeah, that's why we've had a Liberal government for the last decade or so in Ontario.
Yeah. And that's why they're still in the third place wilderness under.
And speaking of better alternatives that'll never materialize, our second headline topic is about the 7 remaining NDP MPs eating each other alive. 3 NDP MPs criticized the other 4 and the NDP council because, excuse me, according to the constitution for the NDP, when selecting an interim leader, the council of the party is supposed to consult with caucus. But the problem here is 3 of the 7 MPs say they were never consulted, and that when they asked the other 4 MPs about the consultations, they wouldn't respond to them.
There's a lot of problems going on here, very clearly.
That's one way to put it, Lucas.
Yeah. I mean, there's a handful of things that stand out to me about this story to begin with. First of all, It's pretty concerning that the 3 MPs that were left out. Now, I will say I don't know if it's ever been made explicit the other 4. I mean, presumably Don Davies was included in the conversation, given he's interim leader.
Yeah,
I don't know if it was ever explicit that the other 3
we're also trying to get.
were also included in the conversation at all, or if they've just not spoken out.
Right.
They
They may have not participated, or they may, but they're not the 3 who did speak out.
Yeah. But it is also concerning.
So there's 3 others we can essentially analyze here, because we know Don Davies, we know where his interests align.
Yeah. And it's pretty concerning that the 3 who have been at least vocal about being left out are the 3 remaining racialized women.
That is exactly what I was going to bring up, and I'm glad you did. It's Jenny Kwan, Leah Gazan, and Lori Idloo. So it is actually extremely fucking concerning that the ones who aren't white were the ones who were left out of the mandatory constitutionally required consultation, and then all the pundits defending this from the NDP online are white people.
Yeah, and it's, I think there's also the other concerning thing with this too is just how leaky the federal council seems to be, given that first the initial letter leaked out, then the response leaked out.
Yeah, to be fair, I don't blame these 3 for their response or it leaking.
No.
And in fact, I know while they're like, "Oh, it shouldn't have leaked. We respect Don Davies. We're all going to work together." I think let us be honest here. These things do not typically go out by accident.
No, that's true. But it's I've seen a lot of critique, especially, I think Leah Kazan made a pretty, bitter tweet, which I think was fair enough.
Oh yeah, and I mean, this provides some context
news
behind that tweet, because it wasn't just her. And to be frank, I don't think the 3 of them owe the white people who shut them out any civility.
No, and it just speaks to, because I've been I was federal president for Brant, and I'm currently CFO for the Brant South Six Nations riding, largely against my will, but it was necessary to get through the election. That's a whole other story.
I'm an NDP riding executive against my will. Please save me.
I happy to help, but yeah, I typically would not want to touch the CFO role with a 10-foot pole, but here we are. But I think this sort of disconnect has always been present, and now it's just being made very clear as the party's in a very dire situation, and people are looking to blame people, looking to fix things, and I think this is kind of a consequence of that.
I mean, I know which side of this fracture I side with. I mean, I know I'm not NDP, so people feel free to doubt my motives here, but I do think one side is clearly right here and one side is clearly wrong. Now, I know that the requirement in the Constitution to consult caucus, perhaps it doesn't mean consult every single member, especially when there's like a large amount of them. But when there's 7...
Yeah, it's really inexcusable.
Yeah, and also, you know what, maybe even if there were 90 PMPs, they should still have like a minute-long meet call with each of them just for posterity.
Or just one large call, like create a group chat.
Yeah, it's like that. That's like, how do you where all of them are? There's 7 of them. Like, you can knock on their door. You all work in the same place.
Yeah, and this isn't I don't even necessarily have an issue with Don Davies as who was selected as interim leader, but process matters.
Yeah,
process really does matter.
I don't even have a problem with him either, but now I kind of do, because of this. It's sometimes bad process can taint what would otherwise be good.
Yep, and I can also see people already getting concerned, especially in light of this, with the party moving to have an expedited timeline for their leadership race too, right?
And again, it's we can't ignore the racialized dynamic you pointed out here. It's not to keep harping on it, but no, actually, yes, I am going to keep harping on it. It's pretty fucking bad.
Mhm.
Like it's inexcusable, and like if the NDP of all parties, like I mean, perhaps I shouldn't say of all parties, because I think, to be entirely honest, there have always been some latent issues with racial discrimination within the NDP, and the idea of them being a progressive party kind of helps to paper that over. But I think it's because things are so small at this point that it is more transparent now. Like,
Mhm.
there's no discipline to keep those sordid details quiet. And in a way, I am thankful for that, because I think the NDP kind of does need a full teardown rebuild. And I don't want people who think that it's okay to cut out all of your racialized, like, female, like, MPs from the discussion about the interim leader. Like, those people should be removed from the party, and they shouldn't have a say in how things go in the future, because they're one of the reasons that the NDP are in this mess.
Yeah, and as someone who is, a card carrying NDP member, I absolutely agree. Like, the party has to do some serious soul searching, and put their money where their mouth is on some of these things, such as, like, actually following through with being a progressive party when it comes to due consultation with racial minorities.
Yeah, and no, I'm my final point on this, I guess, is just as a card-carrying liberal. When the NDP are weak, things get really bad in the Liberal Party. I mean, what's funny is a lot of NDP voters came over to the Liberals and helped create this result we saw with the federal election.
Yep.
But in a fit of stupidity, what the Liberals will do is, when the Liberals pull over right-wing voters, they'll try to appeal to them and be more right-wing. When the Liberals pull left-wing voters, they'll say, okay, you'll vote for us no matter what we do, so we're going to vote. It's like, whether they're trying to get left-wing or right-wing voters, they do right-wing things. Like,
yeah, and
they
and we
appeal
can
to
see how
right-wing people, and then they bully left-wing people into compliance. And it's only when there's like a competitive NDP that the Liberals have to try.
and we see how well that sort of rhetoric worked out in the U.S. election with Kamala Harris.
Right.
Yeah, bullying leftists did not get them a win.
No, yeah, it's like sending
right.
fucking Liz Cheney to Michigan, like, did not work. And anyone could have told you that, like, sending, like, people who supported the war on terror to one of the highest Arab density populations in America was not going to make them happy, for obvious fucking reasons.
And you know what? Had there not been this direct threat on our sovereignty, it wouldn't have worked out for the Liberals here either.
Yeah,
it's only that additional factor that really, I think, pushed things over the edge. And I think another sort of, I think as well, we often oversimplify with the NDP voters having gone liberal. They also went conservative.
That's
in a lot
true
of places,
too. And in the in urban areas, they went liberal, like say in Ottawa or in Toronto. They crossed. I mean, in the urban core areas, they crossed orange to red. But in the more working class and rural areas, like the manufacturing job centers and such, they went orange to blue.
Yeah, like in all three of our Ontario NDP MPs,
gone.
Significant amount of their
Thanos snapped.
Went to the Conservatives in addition to the Liberals. And like, it's such a shame, because we lost some very excellent MPs regardless of party affiliation.
And this is how the remaining ones are treated.
Well, exactly, right. So
yeah, it's like, honestly, I always laugh whenever there's rumors of floor crossings, because it really takes a lot of gumption to do that, and you'll go through shit for the rest of your career, like in your new party, in your old party, and you may be fully right to do a floor crossing. You'll still get the shit. I mean, look at Bob Ray. He still gets shit at liberal meetings, and I'm like, he saved you. He was your life preserver until Trudeau decided that it would be fun to be prime minister.
Except he also is the specter that haunts Ontario NDP supporters.
Yeah, they
at the
hate him
door,
because he's electable and no one else ever has been.
and because of the whole Ray Day thing, which
Oh
happened before
no,
I was born.
oh no, instead of laying anyone off, I just slightly reduced everyone's hours. Well, I should have laid people off instead. Like I, not to be too mean here, but I do think sometimes that like NDPers provincially get mad at elected NDP parties because for being elected.
Mhm. No,
Well,
I think that's
yeah,
fair.
for being
Yeah.
electable probably is better to say. It's like, how dare you be someone people actually want to vote for?
hmm
Yeah, but I mean, then again, he lost to you know who, so
Yeah.
mixed bag.
Yeah.
Folks, moving on to our final topic of today, and talking in the spirit of Mike Harris and calamities for Ontario public transit, things are going bad for Metrolinx.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, yeah,
Who could have seen this one coming?
yeah. Folks, Metrolinx had inked a deal with a consortium to take over operation, maintenance, expansion of Go Transit for the next 25 years. Normally, while I'm not a huge fan of contracting out to a public-private partnership, in this case, I was actually pretty optimistic because we were going to have Deutsche Bahn, the national train operator of Germany, essentially running Go trains in Ontario, upgrading the tracks to electrify them and have proper advanced signaling so you could run them much tighter. Like, you've heard this under various names like Go Expansion, Go RER, Go 2.0. The general idea is that a Go train would just be regional express rail. It would be fast and frequent like a subway, but travel larger distances. So think of it coming like every 10 to 15 minutes. Like, obviously, like a proper rapid transit backbone that is very, very important for the kind of growing city that Toronto wants to make. Like, if you look at a big successful urban areas like Paris, like Tokyo, they have a combination of regional express rail and subways, and also trams and streetcars on occasion, like we do, to fill in between the gaps of that backbone. No more, I guess. Things seem to be heavily up in the air. Metrolinx has quietly dropped Deutsche Bahn and Canadian construction company Aecon Group from the multi-billion-dollar Go expansion project. The handover got delayed but past its previous start date, and now it's just not happening at all, and it appears that Alstom will keep control.
It's just such a shame. First of all, I don't even want to think about how much it costs the taxpayers to cancel these
I
contracts.
think we've already spent build something $1.6 billion was already built.
Yeah, I find that in my couch all the time. Losing that money, who cares, right? No, it's a huge waste of money. It's a huge waste of time. These types of projects would be legitimately transformative.
Right.
Building
these things would not be a waste of money or a waste of time. Canceling them is the waste of time, just to clarify for those at home. Yeah.
And like, had this happened and had, knock on wood, Alto actually comes through, like, legitimately transformative for the eastern side of the country. Like, legitimately transformative to have high-speed rail connect to Toronto and Montreal, Quebec, plus this regional rail expansion. Like, it would have been legitimately transformative, and like all of these projects tend to do, there's always something that crops up where we don't end up doing it.
And to be fair, like, a lot of concrete work has been done and completed to upgrade Go. Like, I know if you live in Hamilton, then you're aware of the track work they just completed that's giving you regular service now at that station when you didn't have it before on both ways from between Toronto and Niagara. So like they're like there's a lot of like the smaller like it's just, but this is really fucking frustrating because I
Yeah.
know I'm not sure if you're familiar with Reese Martin, but he's well a well-known transit advocate, and his work is on YouTube, but he's also written a piece on occasion for more mainstream publications. Like I follow a lot of his work because it's very educational, just about like public transit and urban design practices.
Mhm.
And like he's said that this is probably the last straw for him moving out of Toronto, either to Vancouver or to Montreal, because like he public transit in the GTA is just collapsing. Like
Yeah, it's just so upsetting that like we have the same population density between Windsor and Quebec City as Spain does and France does, and yet our public transit is like a century behind. Um, Not even a century behind, because a century ago we had transit connecting all. We have all the rail trails all over southwestern Ontario that connected all our little towns
it,
with
it,
rail.
it's like the Quebec Windsor City corridor should be so much more urbanized and like transit intensified than it is now.
Mhm.
Like the fact that it'll take you like what 12 hours to go from tip to tip on a GO train. I
Yeah,
mean on Via Rail from like Quebec City to Windsor, like potentially longer. Like
yeah, if you're lucky and you don't get stopped because
if you're
we
lucky and your
because
train is actually on time.
a certain government in the 80s sold off CN, so we no longer have ownership over it. Um,
Yeah,
so we can't control who has priority. Or
real.
I suppose we can. I believe that's something you can do at the federal level.
Metrolinx actually
Yeah,
does own a lot of its track in the
yes.
GTA, and now Via Rail actually leases a bunch of that track for when trains go in and out of Union Station. Like,
Oh, really? I
yeah,
didn't know that.
yeah. So,
It's actually
but
it's
that's the funny thing is Go has priority over them because
yeah,
Metrolinx is like, well, we're the ones who actually paid to buy it and
build it. Yeah,
upgrade it. Sucks to suck, doesn't it? So
yeah,
it's like this is the other thing. I still kind of like Metrolinx more than Via Rail because at least they try. Uh,
yeah.
like I mean, this is pretty bad, mind you. Like I and the fact that it's been done quietly with no government explanation. Like I'm very concerned about the state of Go expansion or whatever new name they'll end up calling for
Yep.
it. But like when you compare it to Via, I mean, you know what? Via has some nice new trains.
Mhm.
Credit where that's due. But you get what you get what I mean. It's
Yeah.
not a good time to be a train lover or a train rider or even a train dependent, but begrudging about it in this country.
Well, and one of the major barriers to get Go Transit to my region, right, is trying to find a way to either build the tracks, or the fact that CN won't give priority over those rails to allow for additional passenger rail
And
along
honestly,
them.
at a certain point, I would just settle like for like I don't expect a Go train everywhere. Like I get it. It's like heavy like mainline rail. But
Mhm.
like if you want to build like some more orbital like metro elevated metros between like different GTHA municipal, like not every train route needs to go in and out of Toronto. There are
No,
people in the GTHA who want to go somewhere else in the GTHA without having to take a 2 hour detour in and out of Toronto.
well,
So
actually, something very interesting that I've been working on lately is I'm trying to build a business case to give to my council to then send to the provincial government for re-uploading all these rail trails and building LRT back along them,
I know
because then
I'm really mad that in Peel region the Orangeville railway they're ripping out the remaining they're just going to turn it into a rail trail even though they own the vast majority of the right of way, and Alvin Tedjo, who lost the mayoral election and who I helped out, his plan was to work with Go and make it an eighth Go train line.
yep.
Yeah,
Well,
like
and
because
that's
that would be exactly what I mean. It would be a perfect orbital. The expensive part is the track right of way, but they already own it. And instead, like if they want to have a trail beside rail, that's cool. But ripping up rail to make a trail is like, it feels like environmentalism until you realize how many people you just put in fucking cars.
Yep. Well, and the rail trails that are in sort of my region, still owned by the province. I believe it's currently with the Ministry of the Environment or with the conservation authorities, but still publicly owned. And it connects Port Dover to Brantford, Brantford to Hamilton, Paris to Cambridge. And if we're already connecting Ion into Cambridge potentially from KW, then you have a link all the way from Simcoe to KW to Guelph to Toronto.
If I may give you a word of advice for your business proposal, I'll propose elevated rail over an LRT or anything that intersects with a street intersection for a very important reason. No human driver.
Yeah.
No human driver means you don't pay a human driver. And like in Vancouver and Montreal, where they have that kind of elevated rail system, it's open like 20 hours of the day, 7 days of the week.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Like, go to Montreal, go look at the REM, and go to Vancouver and look at the SkyTrain. Like, they're literally coming every 2 to 3 minutes on the dot. Like in Vancouver, no human driver, and it's just open. Like, why? Because that's the thing. You don't have to reduce service in the evening because you're
not paying anyone.
Exactly. So that's why I'm always hesitant to see, especially smaller municipalities, like waste a lot of money. Like when it's billions of dollars to build an LRT and billions of dollars to build an elevated metro, but the elevated metro will have much lower operating costs going forward, then there's no reason to spend almost as much as a metro on something where you'll need a human driver, and then you'll only be able to send a car every like 12 minutes or so.
So first of all, Montreal and Vancouver, two cities I haven't visited, so I haven't seen those rail systems. I'll have to do that at some point, but yeah, that's good to know.
No, absolutely. And like, honestly, like one final, before we wrap things up today, one final fun fact about Vancouver, because there's no human operator, the front is just a giant window. And on a bunch of the trains, they have a single seat so you can sit and it feels like you're the one driving the train.
Okay, that's super cool. I'm definitely going to have to go to Vancouver.
Because you just have like a full panoramic view of it going straight through the tunnel, because there's no operator cab, which also means space for people. Yeah.
Oh, that's very cool.
Vancouver has the safest rating out of any in Canada for sure, and definitely and probably in North America, because even though there's no human driver, they're actually better at detecting people on the tracks and stopping before someone gets hit.
That's fascinating.
So yeah, if that's something, so make sure to emphasize these things in your proposal, not just cheaper, but also safer and better. Like, you got the 3 for 3, and you don't usually have those in politics.
No,
you don't usually get cheaper and better and safer all at the same time. That usually feels like a trick.
Yep.
Lukas, thank you so much for coming on the show today. As always, it has been an absolute pleasure.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you. Lukas Oakley, everyone, councillor for Ward 2 in the city called the County of Brant. That'll do it for this week's episode. Thanks again to Lukas for joining the program. You can see him in his job as a local politician in the County of Brant. And next week, we'll have another great guest for you, so make sure to tune in, subscribe on your favorite app, whether that be Apple or Spotify or something else, or just on Substack if you're listening there. Thank you, and have an excellent rest of your weekend. This is the end of the show. Bye.